Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 136. We are back today with all three hosts of the Health Oddity podcast for the first time in quite a few weeks on our own. We have had a run of guests of late, and since the last time we spoke together, we have had Ben Causa on, we've had Brett Jones on discussing iron cardio. We had Ollie Loom on discussing the film he made, the Summit Mentality. And just last week, we had Suzanne Keatley on as well from Fitology Hub. So before we get talking, let me just introduce you to our usual hosts. And like I say, it's the first time all three of us have been together on our own for probably about 5 or 6 weeks, I think. But Mr. Peter Lant, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Like we were just saying before we started, I went to the Banff Film Festival, which like tours the world. Went there the other day, and it was great. So some good films on there. Some people who went on holiday to Baffin Island in Canada, and there's nothing there.
Okay.
It's like, I can't remember. It's like the size of I think they said this. It's the size of they say California, but like there's 10,000 people live on it. It's
Okay.
And that was their romantic holiday for a month. It was great.
Okay.
That was only one of them, but yeah, it's really good. Great.
So was this sort of on tour? Was this in Bath? Was it?
They go on tour around the world, and then there's like 2 nights of it, and you can book them both. But in the show, like 5 or 6 films, a couple of them are like 10 minutes long, and then they'll have a couple of hour-long ones. So it's a good night. It was great. And so, and like some of them are just kind of, one of them was a guy who lives in Chamonix Valley. So when that was all closed, his back garden is basically Chamonix. So he just went skiing and filmed it all on a drone. And that was the film for 10 minutes, just him skiing around Chamonix on his own, like with all the powder and everything, like all unused mountains and stuff like that. It was amazing. It was amazing. So yeah, lots of stuff like that. Great.
Wow.
Highly recommend it.
There was a guy who I don't know if you ever met him before. I think when we did we hosted before, like Charlie Ratcliffe, is it? Or
yes.
No? Yeah.
That was 2015 or something.
I think that might have been the Dan John Art of Coaching that we did.
He was also at the Strength Matters thing.
Yeah, and he lived out in Chamonix, didn't he? And he was like an instructor, but he's also, I think he's sort of like sponsor. He was involved with North Face, the kind of the clothing company, wasn't he? And he used to kind of do mountain trekking and skiing and take groups up like Mont Blanc and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
He might be a good guy to get on, actually. Anyway.
Yeah, actually saying that. Yeah, let me make a note.
Get in touch with him. He was a nice chap as well, yeah.
He was, yeah, lovely guy. Yeah.
I still see some of his stuff actually on social media.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah, he's kind of mountaineering and off-piste skiing and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I've just written that name down. I'll ping you a message afterwards. Anyway, yeah, we are recording. So Mr. Paul, how are you doing?
I feel like I just walked in on someone's kind of general conversation outside a shop or something.
Well, we like to keep it nice and light and informal, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I fell over actually on Sunday. First time I've fallen over ages.
Did you fall over, or have you had a fall? Is that what kind of?
Yeah, no, I was out for a run. To be fair, probably shouldn't have gone for a run, but it's kind of a habit. Just a bit ill, dragging my feet. It was quite a dark kind of road. Heard some weird sound that just made you automatically look to the side, then caught a pothole, went down, bam, like literally in like a millisecond. I didn't even notice I was just on the floor. I'm all right. It's been a while since I've done that. I obviously cut my hands up. But I can imagine what it's like if you're not used to getting up and down off the floor all the time. I hit my hip, I hit my wrist, I fell on my forearm. I rolled luckily, but it was just like I could have twisted my ankle. it kind of makes me think that if you're not used to kind of getting up and down or have strong enough bones or whatever, it's quite easy to break your hip or something like that.
And some people haven't been on the floor like voluntarily for years and years, have they? Even decades, So if you suddenly, it's a surprise and you find yourself on the floor, like you say, it's probably very disorientating and scary. Would you do? Just catch a toe or something, or like you say,
yeah, just caught a toe. I mean, I love barefoot shoes; they're great, and they do give you better proprioception. You can feel the floor, but it was just one of those things where I literally just started running. I'd only been running for about a minute, just coming out a driveway down in a dark thing, heard something, bang, clips something. But because they have no cushioning around your feet, my big toe just like, oh my God, like it's like really just like stubbing your toe without anything on. But yeah, no, it's just kind of, I think it's just I was tired. I always do a Sunday run after the kids have gone to bed around about 8 p.m. And it's kind of a ritual. It doesn't matter how tired I am, I'll just try and go out. So obviously probably should not have started running, or should have been. I was listening to a podcast. I was slightly distracted. So
sounds like you just weren't concentrating, mate.
I wasn't concentrating. It's my own fault. Blaming the pothole.
It's funny though what you said about falling over, because I mean I go out walking a lot. In my walking boots, I've got a pair of like Vivo walking boots, which are brilliant. But they're coming towards the end of their life now. Like they've lost the grip. They're literally in the middle of them. It's flat. There's no grip. Like literally no grip. And at the minute, it's really rainy. Everywhere's muddy. It's chucking it down as we speak now. Everywhere's muddy. It's dried out a bit, and then it's rained again, and then it's got that like liquid mud on the top with puddles and everything. So when you're trying to walk along a track, along the edges, but everything goes down into like a little valley on the track into a puddle, and you're trying to avoid that, which is where your feet go to. And the amount of times I've slipped, but not fallen over. Yeah. Because of like what we're talking about, like strong ankles, strong knees, good proprioception, good balance, all those sorts of things. So whenever my foot slides, like a couple of months ago when it slid and I fell over and knocked my ribs, there was just no, I just went down.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's just a bang.
My foot just went from under me. But when this happens, you kind of slide along, and when you see people slide and then fall over in slow motion, you can see it happening. Whereas I always liken this to like a kettlebell swing or something like that. When you're teaching people that, and they stand up and they try and lift it, and then they don't like lock their knees out and everything. And I'm like, you push through the floor, and then the rest of your body goes like that into like and it goes solid. So you're going nowhere. And that happens kind of automatically. As soon as my foot slides, my body just goes like that. It just goes rigid, and then like find your balance and then put your other foot down. And then, and Sean keeps saying all the time, she's like, oh, good catch. Well done. You didn't, So I think I'm probably tempting fate now, but I slide a lot, but I don't fall over that much. Cause like it kind of switches on you. You teach your central nervous system. I remember Tim Anderson saying this, your body, it fixes itself at the speed of your central nervous system.
I'm taller, so it takes longer for the signal.
I thought you were going to say so it takes you longer to hit the floor. But
not based on Sunday. Yeah. Thing is about a lot of the kind of big shoes, barefoot shoes, is you can either get the really flat ones or you can get the ones with the lugs. Yeah. The problem is when you got the lugs and you got big feet, all they do is pick up all the mud. So they like double the weight of the shoes. And there's no way of getting the mud off because once it's on the lugs. So I've not found a good off-road shoe that doesn't just accumulate mud, that also has the flexibility that I don't want to take off as soon as I get home. I've got two sets.
Well, so you just walk around the house with like your muddy shoes on. You just get sorted. It'll dry out, won't it?
Why not? Because once you've done it once,
you might as well. I mean, that happens here. Sid does that.
Well, yeah, he doesn't take his shoes off, does he?
He doesn't know.
I was going to ask, Pete, you mentioned there like strong, ankles, knees and feet and proprioception and balance and things like that. I was just earlier today watching one of your videos came up on Instagram. And I know you always, you're regularly pistol squats are a regular part of your week. I don't know if it's 2-3 times a week you're doing pistol squats, whatever.
3 times a week for the last 2 years.
3 times. Yeah, but now
Did you do one
I
yet?
notice you're actually holding now you've switched, so you're now holding the kettlebell in a single side rack over the, on the side of the leg that you're standing on, that you're pistol squatting on. Is that's obviously considerably harder, I would imagine, than holding it out in front by the horns with 2 hands, is it?
Yeah, so Paul's got me doing that. He's got me doing so back in the day I was doing ladders on them, like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or something. Then he got me doing 10 sets of 3, 4, 5 on the different days, going up the weights. And I think I got some silly weight on that. And then now he's got me doing 5 sets, but up to 10. So going 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6. So then I'll get a 5 sets of 10 pistol squats. So I'm on a 24 at the minute, and then it'll go to 26 and 28 and what have you. So it's actually just, instead of doing fewer reps for more sets, I'm doing fewer sets for more reps. But then what he's got me doing is for a 6th and final set, take the bell, rack it on the same side and do 2. And then 3 and 4. And then do 1, 2, and 3, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then the following week it'll be like do 2, 3, 4. And then the following week it was 3, 4, 5. And once I get to 5, up the weight. So I'm at a 20 kilo. This week I'm on 20 kilos. I'll do 5 on Friday. And then I'll probably go to 22 kilos, I would imagine, and start at 1 again. But it is way harder. When I did it with a 16, he started me on a 16. I felt I went down into the pit, because when you've got the weight in front of you, you can counterbalance yourself and lean back, and so you sit down into the squat quite nicely. But when you've got it racked, you can't lean forwards with it, so you sit back. So I overcompensated and just rolled backwards and sat down.
I saw the one that you did that I saw today. You were doing it. I think you did it on the right side. I saw you doing it. And I know people have commented on your not recently, but ages ago, because sometimes when you come up, the leg in front kind of kicks back a bit. You know what I mean? As you come up. But on this one on the right, you literally did some reps, and you had the bell racked, and you went down and your leg was like properly out in front, and you literally sort of paused at the bottom and you came up and the leg just stayed like straight out in front, and you came right up, and it was just like, it was like a textbook kind of, but you had the bell here, and I just thought, Christ,
I know that was the last one on my right.
Yeah.
And I lost tension at the bottom and sat right down into it. And I was like, oh, I've got to stand up now.
But you literally,
it was horrible.
What I mean. You were rock bottom, and your leg just stayed extended, and you stood up, and it was like a textbook kind of that you'd see in a pistol squat thing, but you had the rack there. I thought, well, that's that looks challenging.
So if there's anyone out there writing any books and they want a textbook picture, just hit me up.
Because I know, I mean, I've got the SFB in 8 weeks this Saturday.
Yeah.
So I'm back on like doing my pistol practice and the 1 arm 1 leg practice on my slant board and things like that. And the pistols are getting there, but still, I mean, that is just so. I'm not there yet with it.
Just to put this into perspective for listeners, based on that, they're not in your program, right?
No, I'm kind of doing them, as and in between sessions and as and when, and if I've got a spare bit of an hour, I'm doing some practice and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So to put it into perspective, for the last 2 years, I've been doing like 200 a week.
Yeah.
Like every week for 2 years, which is quite a few.
Yeah.
So at the minute, what have I on this week? 5 times 6, 7, and 8. So 5 times 6 is 30 each leg. So that's 60. So then 7's an extra, however many, 35. That's 60, 70, 80, right? So what's that? That's 130. That's 210 this week in 1 week. And I've been doing that every week for the last 2 years. So whatever that is, 210 times 50 times 2. That's, what's that? 20,000?
Well, I did a post actually for my members the other day, and I kind of put into my group the just a video of me doing a pistol, where I'm at. I'm still squatting down to like a low platform now. And I'm on the slant board, and sort of said, and this is probably something that we all experience with the people we train, and I'm sure people at home experience it as well. But I kind of said, don't kind of beat yourself up or be frustrated if you think the progress you're making is slow. Because, I'm trying to get these 2 exercises, just 1 rep, is all I've got to do. And I'm going to be doing that for the next 9 weeks. And I've already been doing it for a few weeks, so you might say 12 weeks training just to get 1 of these on each side really well. And I'm sure you do, but I get people who maybe they come to a kettlebell session and they do the first session or not the first session, but the first session, they maybe try and do a kettlebell snatch and they're like, oh, I just can't get it. Oh, I just can't get it. I'm not getting it, and they're kind of frustrated with the fact that they don't pick something up on day 1, on session 1, and it's just having that longer term, that white belt mentality, that student mentality, that learning, because, we've all been doing this for years. And like we said, when we spoke to Brett the other week, you'll be doing something, you'll probably still, Pete, you'll do, like you said, you've just done like, I don't know, 50,000 pistol squats or something, but you'll do one day and you'll just suddenly think, oh, I've just felt something slightly different today, or I've just put a bit more pressure through my big toe, or I've just angled myself slightly differently, and it's changed the movement and I feel better doing it,
Totally. So it's bonkers. Like, where if you put your front leg straight out in front, it's harder. If you move it to the side slightly, you can move your hip on the other side slightly, and it gives you a little bit more leverage. If you hold the bell up here like you would in a goblet squat, it's way harder. Whereas if you hold it lower and go out in front, which is dubious whether that's legal or not, but it's still going up and down on one leg, so I don't really care. It's those sorts of things. It's just you just play around with it and try, and then and then you keep learning. Your body finds it and goes, do you know what, that's better than it was. That's better than it felt, so let's do that from now on. And you have to keep reminding yourself of that. So the snatch thing, my guys, they pick up snatches really quickly because they've usually done a stupid amount of swings and a stupid amount of cleans and a stupid amount of presses and marching in place or walking with a bell above their head. So they're used to every single part of where the snatch goes to, and they're not scared of the bell. So they pick it up very quickly.
The biggest thing to get over for a lot of the clients I work with the snatch is, well, firstly, I used to have a studio that was mainly made of glass. So I was just like, let's not experiment. The other one is and they find it with cleans as well, is getting over the wrist. And for some people, because they're just there to train and just lose weight or whatever, or just they don't want to be in pain while they're doing it. I mean, it's kind of like inherently uncomfortable doing a lot of the more advanced moves, when you're, I mean, I've got kind of cauliflower ears on my forearms, the kettlebell bumps, just from doing so many jerks and snatches and things like that. But a lot of people, they get that little bit of bruising or the little bit of tenderness there, and there's like a visceral reaction to like, I can't do this, I'm not doing this.
I know what you mean. It's some people don't want to, and it's fine. It's not everyone's going to be the same, but some people don't want to invest the time to learn a skill, to do something properly, to train, when they could do a more simple movement and still get positive adaptations, but they don't have to go through that whole learning process of learning a skill. And that's fully sort of understandable, but it's,
I've been thinking a lot about this recently, and I put a post up on Facebook the other week. Actually, I was talking to my guys in the mindset group about this, about how, and I just put if it was a facetious post, but I put up, I've asked Google, I've asked Google what lavender smells like, and it's told me, but I still don't get it. Can anyone help? Right. So I only had like 2 people comment.
Smells like Marillion.
Yeah.
I did see that post. And
somebody commented describing what lavender smells like. And I was like, well, that's lovely, thank you, but I still don't get it. And this person, this is someone I used to go to school with, actually, a lass who I used to go to school with, and she said, have you not smelled lavender before? Really? Like, can you not just go and buy a candle? And I was like, exactly. Just go and smell it. Rather than asking Google what it smells like, go and smell it, right? And then Chris Denning, friend of the show, commented as well. And he said, can't believe you've not smelled lavender. He goes, it's pointless even trying to describe it. He goes, because it's different for everybody. And there's so much going on and all that. And I can't remember exactly what he said. And I was like, exactly. You can't explain it to somebody. You just, if you get them to go and smell it, and they'll be like, all right, I get what it is now. So the point behind that is there are, people will say like, oh, I want to get stronger, I want to get fitter, whatever. Then you'll put a big chunk of metal on them and they'll go, oh, it's a bit uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. And it's like, right, that's fine. You don't want to do that. So go, like, do the other things that you do want to do, like, circuit train, whatever, and you'll get to a certain level of strength and flexibility and mobility and blah, blah, and all that. But in my experience, and I don't know about you guys, I don't want to speak for you guys, but you see this a lot, is people do that for a certain amount of time. And then they actually get to a point and they're like, do you know what? I feel like I'm not progressing anymore. Like, where does this now go? I've been doing this for a long time and I just now get sweaty and it's got easier. How do I progress it? And then that's where the smell of lavender comes in. You've got to experience it to then start to do things slightly heavier and focus on one thing and blah, blah, and move through it. And then, because we know what that feels like, right? Because we've been through that process. But trying to explain that to somebody who doesn't know what it feels like is really difficult. So you've just got to experience it. You've got to go through it yourself.
That was a bit too much of a clever sort of nuanced post for Facebook, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, that's why I did it.
Okay. No, because it's like, say for example, and this is not saying that there's anything wrong with trap bar deadlifts, because there's 100% not, but it's like, I've got a trap bar in the gym, and it's got, two different, so it's got like, obviously a normal barbell, and it's a bit geeky, but a normal barbell, if you deadlift it, you're picking it up from 9 inches off the floor. And this trap bar's got handles that are a bit higher, so you're picking it up from about 15 inches off the floor. So automatically you're picking it up from higher off the floor, so it's easier to do. And the way you're standing in the trap bar is more advantageous to pick it up more easily with less technique, because you haven't got the bar in front of you at the shins and all the rest of it. But so people start doing a trap bar deadlift because there's less coaching involved and it's safer, in inverted commas, it's easier. There's less coaching involved. You're picking it up from slightly higher. It's more comfortable. But eventually some people might feel like, actually, I'd like to learn how to barbell deadlift. And then, there's a whole new kind of learning curve, isn't there? And okay, well, now it's a lot more complicated and we're going to probably bring the weight down to 50% of what you were doing on the trap bar. And now we're going to learn this. And that's kind of, I suppose, that kind of path to mastery, or that path to learning, whereby, I suppose it's the same as going from like doing machine-based exercises to free weights, or going from, free weights to kettlebells, or going from kettlebells to body weight. There's always stuff to learn. And I think that like kind of almost what you're saying, I think, Pete, is that the people that I have that really do well in the long term, they kind of cross over from that point of, just wanting to train and get sweaty, and they actually want to learn and develop a skill and, invest time to do something really well,
But that's where it's really hard when you get someone who's brand new. Well, it's not really hard. I don't find it hard anymore, because I just say, right, let's just do what you want. And then eventually, if they stay long enough, they go through that process themselves anyway. But it's like we've spoke about before, there's different levels, isn't there, of you becoming your identity. So it's not your identity when you first start out. So it's like, well, you can't force that upon someone. They have to learn that for themselves. So that's the whole point in that lavender thing. I mean, that's basically it's an old kind of Buddhist trick. They ask you ask someone a question that they can't answer, and then they, it's a way of meditating and all that sort of stuff. So they're called koans, Buddhist koans. And you can't actually answer the question, so you have to just think through it and stuff like that. But that's kind of another one where you might ask somebody for the feedback of the thing, and they know, but it's one of those things that you can't explain to someone. You have to experience it for yourself. And that's kind of like changing someone's belief system. You can't tell them to change their belief system. They have to experience it for themselves and then tell themselves, because they're only going to listen to themselves anyway. So they go through that process. So it works out really, really nicely. But yeah, it's hard to get that across. Just get that across in a meme.
And just before we started coming on, Paul, you started talking to us about, or you mentioned that you've had a number of inquiries, I think, recently from you say, from the conversations that you had recently.
I just had a spate of inquiries about personal training, not kind of like through Facebook, but actually through the website, which is generally where people are kind of pretty committed to personal training, etc. And they want to explore it quite seriously. And they're asking me about, they don't want to bulk up, and I've not had a spate of people asking me, all women, saying they don't want to bulk up. And, given the example of, typically the mind going to bodybuilders, some people either seeing, someone like Jessica Biel being too bulky. So, which, obviously as a guy, you're a bit like, really? Yeah, so it was just, it was a difficult one to approach, really. I mean, I just basically said, look, right from the start, and it's probably worth airing this right now, is that I'm a strength coach, and we lift weights, and we've just found that a very effective way of changing people's body with the time that they have. Is that something you're going to be comfortable doing? And some people just said no straight away. So I was a bit surprised, really. I hadn't heard it. I think, the tide has turned over the last few years. People, particularly women, most of the women who approach me now are kind of saying, I'm not strong enough. I want to be stronger. I want to, and they understand that the strength component is going to get them the result they want. I think it's difficult to kind of confront those things too much over the phone, because I don't want to just say, let's sit down and have an hour's conversation, and I hope that I can convince you otherwise. But it's amazing how still prevalent it was. Yeah, it just threw me because it was just so many this week. I don't know what people have seen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if people, because I've got a lot of women you mainly of sort of in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who are lifting a lot of weights and heavy weights. And I'm just wondering if maybe if someone had that kind of concern, if you could almost invite them down to have a look at a class, or to meet some of your existing members who are real people who are lifting weights 2, 3, 4 times a week, and they'll see very quickly that how they look, you know what I mean, and that they're not bulked up. I don't know, because sometimes, like you say, you can't explain to people. It's like, I suppose it's almost like what people are just saying about the lavender thing. You can't really, sometimes you can't explain that to someone over the phone. If they actually came and experienced it themselves and saw, well, actually, there's 5 women here who are all in their 40s or whatever, or all in their 30s, and they're all lifting heavy weights, and they don't look like I think, like I'm worried that I'm going to look. They may that may be.
They do look like they were either going to look, because it depends on what your perception of bulky is.
I think some people have, any definition that they experience sometimes is, I've had people, and they've actually, their shoulders have been looking fantastic, and they're going, I need to stop doing this. I don't want to do any upper body. I feel like I'm getting too big.
Well, and for them they might be, So yeah, I suppose it's
my ex-wife used to, she might still do, I don't know, but did CrossFit. And her brother used to take the piss out of her because she had man's arms. And I'm like, that's, I mean, it's his sister and stuff like that, but that can really, set someone back. Or someone else might hear that and go like, well, I'm not going to go and do that then, because I'll get called. People will say I've got man's arms.
Most men don't have man's arms.
No, whenever I see stuff like that online, because you often see it's down to the insecurity of the person posting or saying, because especially online where it's kind of anonymous, or you're safe, you can say whatever you want online and there's no comeback. You'll see, even like someone like Rebecca Rouse that we had on, or I know we could say Donna Moore, but she is like world's strongest woman. She is very muscular and looks very, very strong. But someone, like a Rebecca Rouse or some of the other ladies that we've had on who lift weights and who do look strong and toned and athletic, you often see, someone online will put, for some reason there's no need to say anything, but they'll for some reason chime in with a comment, oh, I don't like the look of that, or oh, I think you look manly, and it's so often it's the insecurity of the man posting the comment that
that's not even just online. So there's a guest. I'll not say who it is, but there's a guest who was on, friend of the show, and she says people say that under the breath, and not even under the breath. They say to their friends as she walks past.
Are you talking about Claire Booth?
Yeah,
she says people have said that.
Yeah, the one whose name I wasn't going to mention. Yeah.
Well, no, I did, because she quite openly sort of says it herself, doesn't she?
And so people talk about her in the same room as she walks past her in the supermarket and go, bloody hell, look at that. I wouldn't want to look like that. And it's like, imagine if you said that as someone who was obese walking past. You'd be a horrible person, wouldn't you? They'd be like, you can't say that. It's disgrace. It's a condition. It's a disease. It's a whatever it is. But then apparently it's all right to say that about her, who's put a lot of hard work in and all that sort of stuff, which it isn't all right, by the way. But it's quite. I always find that sort of stuff quite interesting.
I think the thing is,
I think it gets to her as well. I actually.
Oh no, yeah.
It would,
Yeah.
The thing is, this is that so people are so deconditioned to seeing athleticism.
Yeah.
And to be fair, obviously when we look at pictures on social media, we look at pictures in magazines, there is a very specific set of behavioral changes and environmental manipulations that create that photo. Dehydration, lighting,
Photoshop,
filters, and
exactly.
And
there's a lot of stuff going on there.
The Photoshop,
but an athletic body is very. I think I probably said on the podcast before. I sat down with a guy recently. And I said, "Look, you look like the average 35-year-old guy. To take yourself to what you're telling me you want to do is going to take you outside the norms. It's going to make you're going to look different. You're going to be acting different. You're going to be. Most people look like you at the moment, and that's fine because you wear clothes really well. You're well dressed. You stand tall. You're not overweight. You're not underweight. You're just normal, and that's what everyone is really. So when you see a very athletic body, sometimes people. I don't know if it's just maybe Eastern European humor, but I had one lady say to me, "You don't look like a personal trainer." So I think she was thinking that perhaps that I maybe should have had a bigger chest and bigger biceps. When I had my Ruben, my eldest son, 7 years old, I think he was 6 at the time. When Denis Vasiliev and Paul McElroy did their little competition together, a 10-minute clean and press, he went up to me and said, "Why do you not have the same bumps on your arms?" So I think like a 7-year-old, just to bring you back down to earth.
But that shows, doesn't it, like the person who said that comment to you as well, it's the prevalent preconceived kind of ideas of what fitness is, what health is, what strength is, what a personal trainer looks like, what strength training does for you.
I had that this very morning because we obviously train outside, and there was a couple of lads sitting there drinking cider.
What, at 7 a.m.?
No, this was at 9:30. So
okay.
but no, I don't know who they were, and it's usually like people in their 40s or 50s who are maybe some homeless guys or something like that. But these were young lads, probably in their 20s, and they were all over the dog, and one of them was like, "Oh, I love dogs," so they were all over the dog because I had him with me, and then. There was like, what weight's that? And I was like, that's a 24. Okay, well, he goes, "Can I have a go?" And I was like, yeah. So he picked it up and went, "What do you want me to do with it?" And I was like, "I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. You asked me to have a go." And it's like, and then he was like, and he started asking just loads of questions. And then he goes, "Deadlifts. Do you do deadlifts? Deadlifts are good, aren't they? They're good for your posture. How much can you deadlift?" And I was like, "I don't know. I haven't deadlifted for years." And then he was like, "All right." And then he went, "Yeah, but it's good for your physique, isn't it?" And all that. And I was like, "Well, yeah, like as in all exercises are, And then he was like, "Are you ripped under there, are you?" And I'm like, no, but I'm strong. So like that's what but it's like, I don't know, it was just weird. It was
Well, it's
very
all
funny.
changed. I mean, we were watching Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves last night.
You were thinking
my
Men
wife
in
has
Tights
certain
there, weren't
films.
Yeah, I
you?
thought you were going to say we were watching Robin Hood Men in Tights. Yeah,
And
the
that
Mel
is a
Brooks.
good film. But there's certain films my wife goes to when she wants to decompress, which is Willow, Game of Thrones, Robin Hood. There's another one. I can't remember. Harry Potter. But anyway, so there's obviously that nude scene, when he's in the waterfall.
Mm.
Where
Oh
he,
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Costner. Unfortunately, not Guinevere. Is it Guinevere? No, that's that King Arthur, isn't it?
Maid Marian.
That's the one.
Marian, yeah.
That was a good TV show back for kids, wasn't it? Back in the 90s.
It was.
What, Tony Robinson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
was good.
Elmo from Brushstrokes. I can't remember
Yeah.
his name.
And Cat from Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Anyway, side note.
Anyway.
But anyway, yeah, nowadays, it's funny actually because the entertainment's changed a bit, hasn't it? Because when you look at Robin Hood, it was kind of gauged, it was kind of designed for everyone. It was like from kids all the way, because I remember having the toys when I was a kid. I was 11 when it came out. And I had like some Robin Hood figures or whatever. And then, right up to adults, because there's a romance story, there was adventure and all that. And it was kind of like, it was broad, but entertaining, Whereas now it's kind of like, it's either very much for kids or teens, or it's very much for adults. So the latest kind of Robin Hoods are very much adult based, they're very violent, they're very dark, they're more historically accurate in inverted commas. But you would have him ripped now, wouldn't you? I mean, he would have been with a personal trainer for probably like 3-4 months. He would have had a nutritionist. He wouldn't have just looked like a guy. He's just kind of an average guy.
Well, Wolverine's a great example of that, because Hugh Jackman, if you look at him when he first played Wolverine, he actually looks like me. I'm about that physique, right?
I was compared to Brad Pitt once as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty much that physique. But now, well, not now, but he's coming back as him, isn't he? But anyway, in the last, not the Logan film, which is arguably the best one with Wolverine in it, I reckon. Yeah. But anyway, apart from the one before that, whichever one, he was really ripped. And that's like, that's what people like. I talk about that about Scott Bakula in
Quantum Leap.
He was like the ripped guy, and if you look at him now, he looks like me. It's like
we spoke about this, didn't we, with Mark Lewis, I think, like the changing I suppose the changing sort of levels of what is expected now of various people, and obviously a lot of the people in Hollywood now, they use drugs and supplements, and like you say, 6 months of training to get into shape for a role, And I know because I was talking to someone about this yesterday, because they're doing a new Deadpool 3, and it's going to be Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and we check so. Hugh Jackman's 54 now.
Yep.
And he's training like really hard and doing whatever he's doing, to get ready for the film. And Ryan Reynolds is 40.
He's the same age as me.
He's 46, I think. Yeah. And he's obviously training really hard. And they have quite a lot of banter together on social media and that sort of thing. But they're both training for the filming, and they're both trying to kind of out-train each other, as it were. But yeah, like you say, it's 6 months of solid training and nutrition, and whether they're taking other stuff, probably TRT, kind of testosterone replacements and all that sort of stuff to get spot on for the roles, and it's that shifting expectation, I suppose, of what's expected of people.
There's a lot of podcasts though that talk about TRT. I mean, I know we've done quite a few podcasts ourselves on HRT, on for women and perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and that is a very distinct kind of phase that obviously women face when they get to their 40s, 50s, beyond. Men don't really have that, but certainly what I've noticed from certainly the podcast sphere is that there are a lot of particularly American podcasters, American fitness guys who are just on TRT. I don't know if it's just easy to get over there.
It's
They're
cheaper
just
in the
like,
States.
I don't know if they've got a specific, because they do a lot of testing, don't they? I mean, whenever I'm listening to any of these podcasts, they're always doing blood tests.
Mm.
They're always doing some tests. And they've always got some kind of deal with somewhere, and you can go through all your bloods and no doubt when you look for something, you find something, don't you? You know, if you look hard enough, you'll find something, and typically they'll find some imbalance in the hormone profile, and it will, you know, obviously these people are generally pretty fit anyway, so they've got a lot of the bases covered already. You know, they're probably eating pretty good, they're exercising regularly, they're, you know, they're pretty attentive to a lot of those things, probably sleep all right. Maybe if they're successful, maybe they've got the stress down, but then they're obviously taking TRT as well.
But this is where it becomes that in my head, that's where this becomes a really dangerous area, because people look at that and go, right, well, you're doing all of that work, but you're then still taking testosterone replacement, and they might just naturally have low testosterone, who knows. So using, like you say, we've talked about menopause and stuff, but we haven't really talked about testosterone and well, any other like hormonal type stuff for
do we know our testosterone levels? Do any of you two have a measurement?
No,
I don't know it because, like you, yeah, go on. Sorry, Pete, carry on.
No, but where I'm going with it, things that inhibit testosterone. I mean, I've got a massive beard, so I'm just thinking I must have loads.
We haven't seen the amount of hair on my chest, eh?
And that's the problem. I haven't got any hair anywhere else on my body, though, so I'm overcompensating.
Right.
No, but what was I saying? Yeah, so basically, like lack of sleep, being overweight, not exercise, all the things that we talk about on here and that everyone pretty much knows are things that lower testosterone levels, right? Stress, like increased stress, you know, all of that stuff. Beer, yeah, drinking, all of the stuff that everyone is kind of like this, our modern society, this state it puts you in, right? And we see that day after day after day. And then you hear, well, if you take this supplement, that supplement, and all that, it'll sort that out. Go on testosterone replacement. It's like, well, that's true. However, if you've got lower levels, so, I mean, it's been, what are we on now? We're like, a 70-year-old now will have, no, a 70-year-old, 40 years ago would have the testosterone of like a 25, 30-year-old now or something. It's like, I've heard that chucked around, but anyway, they've dropped considerably in the last 40 years, hasn't it? Testosterone levels. And that's a big deal. But the way to sort it out, or the way to say, right, if you are low, what do you do about it? Do you need to take a replacement or a supplement? It's like, well, you can do, but what you could do is look at your lifestyle and then change that and see if that and like do that for a year or so. You know, drink less, sleep better, have less stress, do some exercise, lose some weight, and all that. And then
that requires a change in character, though, doesn't it?
Sorry?
Yeah, that requires a change in character.
No, but this is the thing, though. This is what I'm talking about, and this is why sometimes it's quite dangerous not necessarily what podcasters or whoever it is you're talking about, like put the information they put out there, because I'm sure it's fine and it is correct and everything. But you're not starting from the same level. You're starting from a sedentary level, say. And there's the things you can do first before you even try any intervention. The intervention is a lifestyle change, isn't it?
I think that's what most, like with anything to do with medications or supplementation or anything. And I think that's the responsible people will do that. If you had yourself tested and it was low, you would then, and this is what I suppose we would like to think would and should happen if you went to a doctor, would be that the first thing that you'd have is you'd thoroughly address lifestyle, and then you'd look at all the natural things that you could do to sort out the problem before taking, you know, an exogenous injection or tablets or medications or whatever. So ideally that would be the case, you know, that you would do everything you could within your power naturally and with lifestyle. And if it was still an issue, then you could maybe take another route, you know.
I think a big thing on top of lifestyle is the fact, I think we're quite social beings, as much as most men are pretty quite introverted in terms of like, you know, just get on with stuff, do it on my own. You know, most guys actually, you know, when you look at the bonds made in the army during wars, or the bonds made on the playing fields of football and rugby and things like that. Men do quite well actually in groups, and actually a lot of men, I think, quite isolated and quite lonely. I think what did I hear recently? Someone said, well, one of the biggest fallacy in the Bible was that there was a man in his 30s who had 12 friends, because and I'm just wondering whether or not that kind of lack of interaction and that lack of social networking, women are much better at creating networks. I think it's just, my wife's a great example. She down in the school gate, she knows everyone, and I'm just like, who's that? Oh, that's parent. And I wonder whether or not there is not only the chemical and the environment, but there's the lifestyle changes in terms of like the things you put inside your body, the things you can do in terms of activity, but there's also the kind of the emotional aspect, which must have some kind of hormone response, because we have hormone response when we're loved, we have hormone response when we hate something, we have hormone response when we're angry. Those emotional responses create hormone responses, whether it's cortisol, oxytocin, all of those things. Wonder whether or not, things like testosterone and stuff like that is affected by our social networks as much as anything. And as we become more atomized as society, and as men have kind of become, I don't know, just kind of decoupled from certain things, it's difficult nowadays. I mean, we hang out once a week, but, particularly in London, one of the biggest challenges I found when I moved down there is just didn't know anyone. So it's like, how do you create those groups and that social network amongst men as much as anything? Obviously
it's not necessarily. Yeah, it's not. I don't know if it's like a male female type thing. I think it's possibly. You obviously have introverts and extroverts. In across society, don't you? Do you know what I mean? And some people are more.
Well, I think it's less about male female. I think the thing is testosterone is exclusively male. Well, to a degree, is the main male hormone, isn't it? So I'm just wondering whether or not, when you look at kind of circumstances, environmental effects, it'd be interesting to know what the environment has on testosterone levels, and whether or not things like loneliness, things like social networks can directly affect hormone response. I'm sure it's exactly the same with women. It's just that women typically have a better route to address that because it's talked about. We've had 2 or 3 podcasts on menopause, but nothing on.
I think that's the thing. I think
it's not to say we don't talk about other things, but it's just like I don't talk about it. So it's like,
I think probably like menopause is only really. This is what I hear from women that I talk to anyway. That it's only. It wasn't really talked about much, was it? And it's only really
very recently
to be, in the last, say, 5 years or 10 years, 10 years, 5 years. I know that my mum's in her 70s, and when she would have gone through it, 30 odd years ago, it was very, very different than people now, And I think possibly the same thing will happen with, like the stuff we're talking about, the testosterone replacement therapy and the things that affect testosterone now for men, and the fact that as you get older, testosterone does reduce. That's being talked about in, some of the more like the scientific kind of podcasts that we listen to, the Huberman Lab and all those sort of things, and different, but that's very much on the fringe at the moment. And but maybe in 10 years time, for example, that'll be more prevalent, and you'll get programs
that's because of how much it matters as well, though. It really
and you'll get programs on the BBC about it, and on Channel 4 and mainstream media and things like that. So it's probably just about 5 to 10 years behind,
Probably, but I mean, I suppose in a way, there's no like for a woman when goes through the menopause, it takes you from being able to have kids to not being able to have kids, and like up and down the testosterone probably doesn't make a big difference. It makes, look, we can argue either way. It's not going to stop. It doesn't have the same effect when you dip.
There's not a definite line.
There's not a definite. Yeah, it's not like suddenly I can have kids then I can't.
It makes your desire to try to have kids less, if you get my drift.
But there's also like
apparently,
but it also does affect like motivation, positivity, drive, willingness to take action, just energy, all that kind of stuff, it does affect. But like you say, it's not so much like one day you've got it and the next day you haven't. It's a sliding scale, so
but does it need to be a chemical intervention, or is it something that actually, because we think medically as a society, we're just thinking, oh, we'll just fix it with that, whereas actually it could be some deeper thing, is the fact that as we start to atomize society, as people become, it just affects men in that particular way, that testosterone tanks. I mean, how many guys have commit suicide each day, or things like that throughout the world? It's like things affect people differently, but our typical route to success with stuff like, let's medicalize it, let's do this, and it makes sense. It makes sense because it's testable, it's scientific. You can kind of measure the responses of stuff, and doing something bigger like creating social networks, creating meaningful relationships is not, it's not something you can advertise and put a government leaflet out on, but I'm just wondering whether or not that is something. But it's
also a natural part of life, you know what I mean? So it's always been that this has been a natural, from we are all going to die, and we are all going to move in a certain direction. But I think what's happening now, obviously, is that because of, like you say, environmental factors, lifestyle factors, things are happening far earlier in life now than they used to happen. And in terms of the testosterone stuff, because of poor diets, stress, poor sleep, lack of exercise and movement, whatever all these different things that are happening with people, it's happening to men a lot younger. But I think, like Pete said, that's probably the bulk of that can be addressed through lifestyle intervention. I know it's like in America, sport, you're allowed to use TRT. Men are allowed to use TRT in sport if they are medically low. They can legally take testosterone so then you get the thing whereby you get dodgy doctors and stuff saying, oh, he's low, he needs this much, when he doesn't really, and it obviously increases and improves performance. And there's a murky line between performance enhancing drugs and legally taking testosterone and that sort of thing. So it's like I say, we're kind of on, it's the early days of all of that, and it's a bit murky at the moment, but we'll just have to see. But that's interesting. Wasn't expecting to go down this route today.
When we were talking about before we started recording, and we were talking about what we were going to talk about, we've got another podcast in that, because we haven't even talked about any of that.
We haven't talked about any of that, but we will start to wrap up now, because we've been on for about an hour. But,
what were we going to talk about? I can't remember.
We're still on the introduction, I think.
We'll tell you next time. No, that's good. No, it's very interesting, and it's I think, but again, all of this stuff, like I think that the bigger point to kind of zoom out on it, and to kind of to make a more general point, is that all these changes that are happening to people, whether it be men with lower testosterone, whether it be the type 2 diabetes pandemic, whether it be depression, anxiety, stress, whatever it is, we should try to, as much as possible. This isn't saying that there's never a cause for medical interventions for certain things, because there most definitely is, but that shouldn't be the first port of call. The first port of call should be lifestyle intervention and how we can best naturally improve what's going on with us before taking drugs and going more extreme routes, I think. And it's just that most people don't have the as a society, as an organization, NHS, whatever it might be, whichever country you're in, to actually sit down and have a full kind of lifestyle diagnostic with someone is going to take far longer than the 3 to 5 minutes that you've probably got with your doctor when you go and see them. So writing a prescription for something is obviously far quicker, easier, and gives a more immediate impact on something, but is not necessarily the best for the long term. But interesting. We're all just sitting in now. Cool. I think we've had a good chat, haven't we? So probably this. Is there any final thoughts before we wrap? Or
I've got one,
Mhm.
but it's not really.
You're not going to insult another entire
No.
It's usually no.
Just the makers of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, because he goes, he lands at Dover, right, and then he goes to get to Nottingham. I mean, I know that, like, maps it back.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
Were probably a bit shit, but he ends up in it's Sycamore Gap next to Hadrian's Wall, which is like border country. It's up near Hexham.
Is that where he meets Morgan Freeman?
What, in Hexham?
No, he doesn't. He meets Morgan Freeman in the prison, doesn't he? It's
in
where the
country.
kid climbs the tree, where they're after him. The kid climbs the tree, and then the sheriff of Nottingham's mate. What's the name of the actor? The one with the long dark hair, the bad guy. Who's in?
He's in Crow.
He was in the Crow. Yeah, Michael Wincott.
Yeah, I love him.
Fact.
He's great. He's just evil, isn't he? But he where they chase the kid up the tree, that's Sycamore Gap on Hadrian's Wall, which is miles away from Nottingham and Dover. But he goes via there to get to Nottingham. So yeah.
Well, luckily, you're probably one of the only people who recognise that.
Well, I've got a big fact about Robin Hood. The little boy, the little boy who's going to get strung up and hung. He's personal trainer who works just down the road from me.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Yeah, owns a business just down near New Malden. I think it's New Malden.
Well,
yeah, he's personal trainer. Yeah.
Nice.
What happened to his acting career? I know which one would be more lucrative.
One of the merry men was the pickpocket in Oliver Twist. What's his name? There's Oliver Twist, and then there's
Artful Dodger.
Artful Dodger, that's it.
Jack Wilde.
Jack Wilde was the Artful Dodger in the film. Yeah.
Yeah, in the musical one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in that as well as one of the one of the merry men. So
he was a massive. Anyway, we'll not go down. He was a massive alcoholic, wasn't he? And what have you?
Yeah, I mean, he aged quite a bit in probably 25 years.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, and Oliver Reed was Bill Sykes, wasn't he?
Yeah, he probably.
Anyway, we're moving into a movie stroke musicals podcast.
You're going to start singing, James.
Which is not a bad thing. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, right. So that was episode 136. We kind of went around the houses a bit, but I think it was interesting. I enjoyed it anyway.
A bit like Robin Hood trying to get from Dover to Nottingham.
Yeah, went via Braveheart.
And I've never been to Nottingham, and we'll be in Nottingham in May.
Wow,
won't we?
Honestly, that's
I think. Is there there must be like some kind of Robin Hood museum or something in Nottingham, or there's got to be some kind of tourist stuff around Robin Hood in Nottingham, is there?
I've no idea.
I don't know. We're going. Pete and I are going to the UK's strongest man and strongest woman in Nottingham, and I'm taking my little daughter Bella with me. So I'm there for like 3 nights. I thought if there's something about Robin Hood there, that'd be quite good as well. I might do that.
I mean, there's museums for all kinds of things, isn't there?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Might even have the map that he used to get from. And you look at it and go, "What an idiot!" They're probably sitting there with his dinner on the table, like, "Where the hell have you been?"
But Morgan Freeman wouldn't have known any better, would he? He would have just been, "I'll just follow you, your country." Yeah, it's this way.
Well, Robin Hood was Canadian, wasn't he, in that film? Or was he Canadian or American?
Yeah.
Anyway, we will be back next week for episode 137. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're listening on a platform that allows you to do so. And if you'd like to join the Facebook group, go into Facebook, search Health Oddity on under groups, and we will let you in. And thank you all for listening. We will see you next week. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.